You're in consultation with a patient where they ask you a question out of the blue when you don't know the answer to that question. Your knee-jerk response almost always would probably be, that's a good question. Now for a second, just put yourself in the position of your patient. If you were on the receiving end of that statement, how would you feel? Would you feel comfortable, empowered, happy, strong? Or would that just lead to another awkward moment in your life? So in this video, I'm going to come up with some alternatives to what you can say to that dreadful statement, that's a good question, in order to make it a positive experience for everybody. To learn more, stay tuned for the rest of this video. Welcome back everyone to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shweta. I am the founder of Healthy Dynamics. We are a coaching practice that helps non-native English speakers who work in healthcare jobs and work closely with patients build better language and communication skills in order to build better relationships with their patients that are founded on trust and credibility, as well as stand out in their workplace as a person of excellence. Now, apologies for not posting a video last week. I was a little bit overwhelmed with all of the typical internet noise and, me being me. I'm very new to all this, so imposter syndrome sort of got to the better of me. And I just needed to take a little bit of a space away from everything, just to realign and reframe everything and come back with a new, fresh mind. Now, just a little bit of a heads up, I will be away most of April. I'll be on a trip to Sri Lanka with a bunch of fellow child-free women. So it's going to be an amazing trip. I've seen the itinerary. I cannot wait. I'm looking forward to it. If you don't know this about me, I absolutely love to travel. I have been to Sri Lanka, will be my 42nd country in the world, so I'm absolutely excited, and I'll be celebrating my birthday in Sri Lanka as well, which is even more exciting. And after Sri Lanka, I will actually be in Bali. So I will be in Bali to work one-on-one in a VIP experience with my business coach, Lydia. So Lydia is the reason, or her guidance and support is what actually got me started on starting this coaching practice. So I will leave a link to Lydia's channel over here. She is absolutely incredible and amazing at what she does. And for anyone who's starting off in the business world and who needs guidance, I would highly recommend a business coach. It's kind of difficult to do this on your own, especially you almost feel like a newborn baby. I feel like that even now, even though I'm almost a year into it. So, and it's important to find the right coach for yourself. And for me, Lydia has worked out better than I can ever imagine. So that's where I will be. I might share some videos on my time in Bali and Sri Lanka, so stay tuned for that. But these videos, just in April, they will sort of taper down a little bit. I'll probably do like a couple in this channel, but we'll keep you posted when that happens. Okay, well, let's go back to what today's video was about. So I've done a few of my past videos. If you want to go back and check them out, here is the link for that. So in that, I have covered what you should do or say when you have being asked by a patient as a healthcare professional a question that you don't know the answer to, the question that you've never encountered before. So I have left a couple of videos where I've gone through what you do and don't do in each of these scenarios. Do go and check them out. But this sort of wraps up one very common element, this video, that you've come across in each of these common scenarios where you have your common response to when you are getting a question or a statement that you don't know the answer to, you've never heard of before. Your unconscious response, we don't put any thought into saying this, we just literally like a knee-jerk reaction, you just say, oh, that's a good question. Now, while that statement in and of itself may sound harmless, just imagine how your patient would feel in that situation. And if that is, quite difficult, go back to when, say, you were a child, you went to school, or you were a child and you asked your parent a question, and your teacher and parent said that to you. That's a good question. How would that make you feel? As a child, you would probably feel quite awkward, embarrassed, like dumb, stupid. And you might be second guessing, whether I even did the right thing by asking that question in the first place. And imagine if you're a parent yourself and you your child comes and asks you a question, because children have the tendency to do that, they ask a lot of questions. They ask you a question that you don't really know what to say or what to do. And if you say to them unintentionally or unconsciously, that's a good question, that's not going to be a very good feeling for them, in my opinion, because that to me sounds like a really big backhanded compliment. So even though your intention is that, yes, the question is good, you're not really sort of putting them in a position where they're feeling good about themselves. So while that statement in and of itself is pretty harmless, it can be perceived in a somewhat of an awkward, uncomfortable manner. It can lead to that kind of a situation and feeling in the other person as well. So I'm just going to go through some tips on what are some of the alternatives that you can say and do instead of, that's a good question, or, oh, that's a good question. So number one, there is absolutely no need for you to feel embarrassed or ashamed, because as I've mentioned in those past videos of mine, there is no reason for you to do that, because you are human, you're not a superhuman, you're not a walking encyclopedia, you're not expected to know everything. So if you don't know something, it's okay to just admit that and be completely open and say, oh, that's, I've never heard of that before, or you're unfamiliar with it, or you don't know the answer. That's completely okay to say that. And while I'm at it, it's also important to not fake your emotions. So when you're hit with a question that you don't know the answer to, instead of you're putting on a poker face that you have to just pretend to be, calm, cool, or stoic and comfortable. If you're naturally that way, that's fine. But in that situation, it's important that you just take it for what it is and just be genuine and transparent with your emotions. So if you feel like, I've never heard of that before, I'm like, oh, or something. See, these are just some of the expressions that I'm making. Now, if I was in that position, that's what I would do. I would not keep a poker face just like this and say, oh, that's a good question. I would give them a little bit of a heads up. That again shows that you are quite transparent, authentic, and genuine in the process. So that's the first thing. And the second thing also is that you, instead of saying again, that's a good question, a better way of expressing yourself is that, wow, I've never heard of that before, or no one has ever asked me that before. So instead of making what was originally a moment where the patient or the person asking you the question may feel somewhat blindsided and humiliated, they might feel quite, so you might feel pretty happy if you were the patient and say, okay, I have opened this person's eyes to something different, something that they have not heard of before, something that they may not have been familiar with. So that is a much better feeling to instill in the person who's asking you that question. So a statement like, I've never heard of that before, and no one has ever asked me that before. That does not make you feel, that's not meant to make you feel dumb, awkward, or stupid. It's just unfamiliar new information to you, brand new information to you. That's just what the intention is. The next bit is you should actually really genuinely and give the patient a heartfelt compliment. You can do that by saying something like, well done for teaching me something different, or offering me a different perspective to ponder on. So this again makes the patient feel happy, empowered. They don't feel that dumb or stupid after all. They might feel like, yes, I've given this person something to think about, something that I have considered, that I've thought about, which probably other people don't. Now, just a side note, I'm the queen of doing that. So, you will see that in a lot of my videos. I am it's been in my nature all my life that, I'm quite natural at, picking out things that no one else normally thinks of, things that are a little bit out of the box, things that are out of the norm. I'm very good at picking those up, and things that can be somewhat controversial as well. I have no problem in actually sharing those thoughts of mine on this channel and everywhere else. If you watch some of my past videos where I talk about patient autonomy, a lot of my views in it are very controversial and not really well received. And that's not something that patients should be made to feel awkward or uncomfortable about. I think we live now in a time where all perspectives and all opinions are to be shared and encouraged, just to have an open dialogue and encourage more free thinking. So that is, again, instead of saying, that this is a good question, you can say, thank you, or well done for offering or showcasing a different perspective, or teaching me something that I had never heard of before. So just to put everyone in a better position. Lastly, last but not least, it's important that you use the word interesting, but not as an adjective to the question that's being asked. Now this sounds tricky, but I'll explain that a little bit better. So you're using the word interesting, but you're using it as an adjective to the perspective, or the viewpoint, or the thought, or the opinion, or the 2 cents that the patient is sharing with you. So yes, the question may well be interesting, that's fine. But we've already established that, that's a good question, or anything along good, interesting, one of a kind, whatever. We're not putting that adjective in relation to the question. And I've given reasons for that previously. So in this case, instead of adjectifying the question, you are actually saying the perspective, your viewpoint, your way of seeing things, your what's the word that I'm looking at? We have a word in Hindi called drishtikon. I don't know if there's a translation for that. I'm going to put it up over here. That's one of a kind, or that's very unique. I've never heard of that before. So the observation, sorry, the word just came to me. The observation is one of a kind, very unique. I've never heard of that before. So when you use words and phrases like this, instead of the dreadful, awkward and uncomfortable, wow, that's a good question, and make the person feel dumb, the patient feel dumb, stupid, and, blindsided, and, they're like, oh, why did I even bother asking this? It puts them in a position of feeling good about themselves. And that's really what we are really aiming to do as healthcare professionals, is really support them and make patients feel good about themselves and make them empowered. So this is one step in which you can absolutely achieve that. So these are just some of the tips that I went through in this video on what are some alternatives to the dreadful question when someone asks you, as a healthcare professional, the patient is asking you a question that you don't know the answer to. And instead of saying, oh, that's a good question, you can say something different. So next week, I'm going to go back into either another example of a bad news or a video about how to tackle neurodivergence. So you'll obviously know about that. And to stay tuned for the video or the videos on this channel, please make sure that you like the video if you do like it, and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to stay tuned for videos like this and other future ones. So until next time, have a good week, and thank you very much for your time, attention, and presence, and I will see you next week. Cheers.